Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Salmeen Ansari, and I welcome you back to another fantastic episode of Contourcast Podcast for Life Season 3. This is the season finale, and it's going to be big because the personality that I have with me today is larger than life. She brings with her many years of experience, a lot of wisdom, and a whole lot of learning. I'm delighted to welcome to the hot seat Hira Zainab. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Salmeen, for the lovely introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here today, Hira, because I don't think there could have been any better way than to have you on the hot seat. And why is that? Because when you and I were talking and the years of experience that you bring, apart from that, it's the sensibility and the way you put things together. लेकिन हमेशा से इस तरह की एक स्ट्रॉन्ग इन्फ्लुएंशियल पर्सनालिटी नहीं थी शायद आपकी. And I was so surprised to hear that you were a very shy person. So, what's the backstory there?
I think it started with me being a very shy kid. And not just a shy kid, but someone with feeling whose voice doesn't matter. With
Okay.
a very suppressed personality. Back in the day, and we were talking about it earlier as well, I used to be one of those kids who were laughing stock among the kids. I was bullied. And a lot of for a long period of time, I thought that's my personality and that's who I am.
Okay.
And it's only after certain incidents that I realized that that's a big part of my personality, but that's not only my personality.
Right.
And so, I mean, the best part, which I have figured out, is that our personality is like, think of an onion, it has different layers.
Yes.
And each layer is dependent upon a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are exposed to a different situation, it reveals that side of ourselves, which we may even never realize that it is part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the key thing. Okay, while that shyness is still inside me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the dominant trait of my personality. There
ठीक है.
are certain situations where I still am shy,
Acha.
and there are situations where I am very confident in my own voice as well.
So you specifically mentioned, and I'm so glad that you did, that you were taunted or bullied when you were younger. And it's unfortunate, but it happens to be a very common reality. And a lot of people, narrate that when they were bullied at that time, they really thought that that is who they were. And then there is a turning point. So आपके लिए turning point कोई incident था या कोई शख्स था? And what was the learning that came out of that incident?
So one of the things that I'm very blessed about is that usually जिंदगी में हर इंसान की जिंदगी में कोई एक moment होता है
Mm-hmm.
which changes their life. In my life, there have been like dozens of incidents which have been really life changing,
Mm-hmm.
and each, really showed that layer of my personality that I did not know before. But actually, the first life changing event that I had was when I was given responsibility for the first time.
Okay.
And that's different from expectations.
Right.
It's actually, and it was back in when I was in grade 6.
अच्छा.
And I, उस ज़माने में ये होता था कि जो क्लास मॉनिटर या कबर्ड इंचार्ज होते हैं वो हर साल वही रिपीट हो रहे होते हैं.
अच्छा.
But in grade 6, one of my teachers, she had a unique idea that she wanted to change the monitor on monthly basis.
हर महीने.
Yes.
अच्छा.
And for some strange reason, she picked me.
अच्छा.
A kid who was completely shy, not really participating in any activity, didn't have much friends. And she picked me to be the in charge of the class. And that was the first ever time I had a kind of a leadership role. And that revealed that side of me, which actually surprised me as well, because what happened in the next 1 month was that I took different initiatives for class. जो ज़माने के होते हैं, जो फाइन से पैसे जमा हुए उनसे क्लास के लिए क्लॉक ले ली, क्लास का पूरा डेकोर चेंज किया, blah blah. And what really transpired after that was that that teacher was so amazed that she wanted then for me to continue, because those kind of changes were so transformative in nature कि उससे पहले आज तक हुए नहीं थे. But that entire incident revealed that side of me which was completely not known, because for the first time I had to talk to people in my class because it was my responsibility to talk to people. And so I had to get out of my comfort zone and in the process rediscover myself in a different way. And that opened new avenues, which eventually ended up in different ways and all. So I always recall that, and I always take the key lesson that a lot of times
Hmm.
we need someone to believe in us
Huh.
and give us the responsibility before we start believing in ourselves. And it's only when I had the first responsibility,
Hmm.
I actually started showing the better version of myself.
सो किसी ना किसी और शख्स के एतमाद से खुद एतमादी जो है उसकी शुरुआत होती हैं एंड
And
दैट इज सो ट्रू.
it's very ironic as well. I know that a lot of times we keep on saying everyone to have faith in yourself,
Yeah.
love yourself, but it's ironic that it actually starts with the first step starts with someone saying that hey, I
Hmm.
have faith in you,
Hmm.
or I know that you can do it.
Yeah.
And only then we really start connecting with ourselves.
Hmm.
And somehow हमारी नेचर में वो जो सेल्फ डाउट है या लैक ऑफ वर्थ है वो इतना embedded होता है कि we need that external voice to silence the internal voice,
एक वैलिडेशन चाहिए.
and then start to have confidence.
That's true. And fast forward to how magnanimous you are today, Hira. Vice President Strategic Affairs at Contour Software. And that's not the only thing that defines you. No doubt, a lot of responsibility comes with this designation. But this whole journey of growing in, the educational and edtech field, and then also being CEO of, an organization like Pasha, and then now working in one of the biggest conglomerates in the region. क्या आपने कभी किसी एक सर्टेन पॉइंट पे ड्यूरिंग योर आफ्टर एजुकेशन ये तय किया था कि बस मुझे सिर्फ बहुत ही बड़ा करना है उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं करना है?
So I'm very glad that you asked this question. When I turned in 2010 actually,
Okay.
my birthday is on 1st January, so it's a very good date because it helps me recall what has happened in that. So 2010 में मैंने सोचा कि मैंने अगले decade में अपने लिए क्या करना है.
ठीक
I
है.
made like a to-do list for myself. It
ठीक
was
है.
like 30 tasks
अच्छा.
that I wanted to achieve. I was young, I was energetic, I was just beginning my career, and so I thought that there are certain things that I want to do in my life. Over the years, I forgot about that list.
अच्छा.
In 2020, I stumbled upon that list. And then at the end of the 2020, when 2021 was starting, which is 1 decade later, I thought I should now look back at that list and see how much of it I really achieved.
अच्छा.
And the funniest thing was that out of those 30 goals that I set for myself at that time, I only achieved 4 of them.
अच्छा. Okay.
Now, does that mean that the entire decade was like full of failures? What I realized was that the things that I ended up achieving were things that I never thought were possible at that age.
Fantastic.
And what it made me feel is that the things, and there are a lot of firsts that I did. I was really humbled to become manager in an organization where the normal criteria to become a manager was 8 to 10 years, and I
ठीक है.
became a manager after 1.5 to 2 years. I founded my own startup. I did a lot of investments, and there are a lot of first things that I did. I managed a team, built a department from scratch, managed a team of 40 people in 12 cities at a very young age, and then became the youngest and only female member of the board of directors as a board of director for a international company. And the key thing is that all those things, my 2010 version could never have thought that it was even possibility. The goals that I set for myself at that time were so small, and my 2020 version, के लिए वो goals didn't even matter. They were no longer a priority. And so one of the key things that I realized, and the key lessons that I realized, was that can we set goals 10 years down the lane? And as a matter of fact, the reality is that goals change.
Yes.
But does it mean that we stop defining goals? That's not true. What really has helped me throughout my life is कि मेरा एक ritual है कि I always take myself out on a date on quarterly basis.
Okay.
Just to reflect on where I am, what I want to do with my life, कौन सी चीज़ें हैं जो कि सही चल रही हैं, कौन सी चीज़ें हैं जिन पे I need to fix and all. And that always keeps me, grounded.
Mhm.
And that always keeps me flexible and keep on changing my priorities and changing my goals depending upon the new reality that I live in.
Hmm.
And so goals keep on changing, but we have to keep on defining goals to just see where we are going and where we want to go.
Right.
And it's always fun, and I always say it's good to write down the goals because years later, when you look back at them, you realize how you have grown as a person as
Yes.
well,
Yes.
and the kind of things that you have, achieved.
That's wonderful. So, in short, my question you have answered in your own fantastic way, which is कि इतनी फैंटास्टिक में हूँ उसका मुझे भी एहसास बहुत बाद में हुआ ये बेसिकली आपको बहुत बाद में एहसास हुआ दैट यू हैड अचीव्ड such fantastic things because you were capable of and always probably were meant to do fantastic things.
If I can, sorry,
Please go ahead.
if I can add to that, I think the key, sorry, and coming back to that, is the key focus always has been that my today should be better than my yesterday.
Yes.
And, they say it's a common saying, but for me, it has been my life mantra
Acha.
that I am the biggest competitor of my own self.
Yes, true.
So that keeps me, so knowing where I was and where I want to be, that keeps me growing, which means that my goals keep on changing, which means that in the end, when I graduated or when at that time, I did not really meant to achieve the things that I did. But what I wanted to do was to create difference. Wherever I go, whatever I do, create difference with my presence. And that was the key, purpose of my existence, which helped me in achieving things that I ended up doing.
And indeed, you have created a lot of difference wherever you have gone along the way, and you continue to do so. And it's fantastic that, you talk about purpose because I think everybody should work towards actually finding their purpose. Because when we don't have goals, we don't know where we're headed. And when we do have goals, we do know where we're headed, which eventually leads us to an umbrella, which is the overall purpose of life. अच्छा एक बात जो कि एक इंटरेस्टिंग इस पे डिबेट हो सकती है बिकॉज आपने भी बहुत सारे लोगों को हेड भी किया है और मेंटोर भी किया है कोच भी किया है ऑफ रिकॉर्ड ऑन रिकॉर्ड आपकी गुफ्तगू होती है डू यू फील कि कोई स्पेसिफिक एज ब्रैकेट या जेंडर के लोग होते हैं जो अपने आप को ज़्यादा अंडरमाइन करते हैं कि क्या यंगर लोग ज़्यादा अंडरमाइन करते हैं या यू फील फीमेल्स एज कम्पेयर टू मेल्स या मेल्स एज कम्पेयर टू फीमेल्स अपने आप को ज़्यादा अंडरमाइन करते हैं कि I don't know if I'll be able to, achieve so much.
I think it has less to do with age or gender. However, the research suggests otherwise, and I'll come to that as well. My personal opinion is it has more to do with the exposure that you had while growing up.
Okay.
And the people you were surrounded with while growing up.
ठीक है.
If you are growing up in a household that believes कि you can achieve anything, तो आप बचपन से आपके अंदर वो वाला कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाता है. And we have seen a lot of, specifically आजकल जो conscious parenting का concept है, उसमें we are seeing a lot of changes in the kids that are being brought up these days as compared to, for example, a decade or 2 decades later.
Right.
However, so coming back to the question, from an age perspective, there is no limitation on the age because sometimes you can spend even 50 years of your life without really coming out of your comfort zone or someone really saying that I believe in you or doing something different to reveal the additional, layer of your personality.
Right.
And doing really that makes you, or, makes you tick or makes your passion come alive. Because only when we work on something that is we are passionate about, we actually really create a difference. So I do believe that it's not dependent on age. However, when it comes to gender, the reality is, and when I'm saying the reality is that the society that we live in, and not just in Pakistan, across the world, as per research, 70% of women doubt themselves to be, worth leadership positions. So that's the overall ecosystem is designed, and it has evolved over the years, but it's designed to put females in a particular category
जी बिल्कुल
and things like that.
हम्म
And overall has higher expectations of women, I feel, than men in a lot of ways. And that really creates that self-doubt, that really creates that imposter syndrome, that really creates that lack of desire to explore and lack
बिल्कुल
of belief.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल आप सही कह रही हैं. Even in terms of, I was working on a project जिसमें I had the opportunity to understand statistics and trends in terms of migration. और migration के हवाले से भी वो बात ये कर रहे थे कि ख़वातीन की migration to particular countries, especially the GCC areas, has been ongoing for some time. And उसमें भी बहुत ही एक preconceived idea होता which roles they will fit. Even in the labor and skilled force, उसमें भी बहुत limitation होती है. तो leadership तो छोड़िए, even general workforce में. And this is in no way to say कि इसमें एक particular gender का कसूर है. We will leave patriarchy for another podcast. But the fact of it is that the world is evolving. It is a very slow process. But I think women need to start believing in themselves more, so that even if there is somebody else, whether another female or a male, who has a doubt that they deserve to be in a certain position, they've already proved themselves and they've already created a benchmark.
3 things that I will add to that, Sameem. One, I've always said this कि in the society that we live in, यहाँ पे ख़वातीन को respect बहुत मिलती है. There are loads of people who will pull a chair for you, open a door for
Yes.
you, give the basic respect that you deserve, and then thanks to our culture and thanks to our values that we are built, that we have groomed with. मगर जो professional area में respect जो होती है, professional respect, ख़वातीन को हमेशा earn करनी पड़ती है. They always have to demonstrate their knowledge, their expertise in order to show that they are not just a pretty face and they bring value to the table.
बिल्कुल.
So there is an extra effort that women have to do, which whether we want to admit or not, men do not have to do. So एक तो ये बात है. दूसरी बात ये है कि when you say कि women should believe in themselves, I also believe very, very strongly in women believing in other women,
Yes,
in women
absolutely.
supporting in other women, because that's one of the reason why we are seeing this change. Because जैसे जैसे awareness आई है, तो वो consciously women have started to now support other women,
Yes.
and that has helped. And thirdly, I believe when we say कि household में जो environment होता है, उसका एक बहुत बहुत major contribution mother की तरफ से आ रहा होता है. So when the mother gives जो अच्छी वाली बोटी to बेटा and not to beti, the clear distinction starts from there.
Yes, that you're not worthy of it.
Yes. And then, or, if the son has done something, so, it's okay, kya ho gaya, and daughter has done something, so you should be more careful and you should be more responsible. If mothers are treating their daughters like that, then they are contributing to the problem.
Yes.
Not intentionally. That's something that they have been groomed with.
Yes.
And that is something that I learned very hard way, is that when I went to Sawat for the first time, and I went it to, had a project over there, and I was amidst 50 males, and they wouldn't even look at me. So I was head of the programs. I was supposed to be, training them,
Yes.
but they would not even look at me. They will not even acknowledge my presence. And over the next 2 days, I had to, just rub down that disrespect and really focus on being respectful from my side and continue to work with them.
Right.
But what happened 2-3 दिनों के बाद was really amazing कि वो लोग जिन्होंने कभी आज तक किसी एक फीमेल के साथ काम ही नहीं किया था, they started to really respect me in ways that others hadn't done before. And those people, I'm still in touch with them. They still look up to me. They still reach out to me for advice. And what I learned from that entire experience was because they never had the exposure of seeing a female leader.
Yes.
And the ones that they did see, they were not really that respectful to their culture. So वो जो distance था, it further grew. It's only जब वो exposure उनको मिला, then this उनके अंदर acceptance आई.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cycle,
It
and
is.
we are in a cycle in that regard.
हीरा, आपने बहुत अच्छा किया कि आपने स्पेसिफिक एक मिसाल दी, क्योंकि अगर चेंज की हम बात करते हैं और लोगों की मेंटालिटी की बात करते हैं, तो माहौल भी तो ऐसा बनाया जाए जिसमें उनको चेंज होने की इजाज़त हो. एंड सो ब्यूटिफुली पुट दैट यू वर एबल टू गिव देम द अपॉर्च्युनिटी टू अंडरस्टैंड कि अच्छा ऐसा भी होता है. In terms of talking about, you said कि tough environment and it's a tough journey and women are tough on themselves. You also have a very tough job, a fantastic organization, but a very, very wide portfolio that you're taking care of, and a very interesting story जिसमें आप ना सिर्फ एक, ना सिर्फ दो, but तीन different किस्म के domains को आप देख रही हैं. So for the audience who doesn't understand, what is it exactly that you do?
So Contour, as we know, is subsidiary for Constellation Software. But जो Constellation Software है, उनकी story शुरू हुई थी 1995 से,
Right.
and they believed in companies that are product companies
Mm-hmm.
and which are good companies, and thought कि how can we convert them to great companies.
Right.
तो जो mergers and acquisitions है, वो Constellation का bread and butter है,
बिल्कुल.
core essence में शामिल है. अब तक Constellation software के level पे, which is headquartered in Canada, listed in Toronto Stock Exchange, has acquired roughly 1,000 software companies
Wow.
across the world, product companies.
ठीक है.
So we have a complete ecosystem of these companies that are complementing and really creating and focusing on innovation.
ठीक है.
After they had acquired, 1,000, they realized that they now need to expand geographies. कॉन्टूर की स्टोरी भी जो एक स्टार्ट हुई थी 2011 से, वो एक एक्विजिशन हुई थी जिसका बैक ऑफिस था कराची में,
Right.
एंड वहाँ से फिर कॉन्टूर की जर्नी स्टार्टेड with 12-13 people and now has crossed more than 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
मगर जो कोर एसेंस कॉन्स्टलेशन का था, वो अभी इस रीजन में आके हमने नहीं इम्प्लीमेंट किया था.
Mm-hmm.
So once we did the acquisition of Autosoft,
जी.
that really opened the door of doing more acquisitions and really working with the product-based companies over here.
Hmm.
And that's what my primary job is, that I'm looking after the mergers and acquisitions. And we work with product companies, जो कि we call them vertical market software solutions,
ठीक है.
which is कि किसी न किसी एक वर्टिकल में, चाहे वो एजुकेशन हो, हेल्थ हो, रिटेल हो, उसमें उन्होंने एक प्रोडक्ट कंपनी बनाई हुई है, एंड दे आर वर्किंग विद बिजनेसेस
Mm-hmm.
in that particular vertical.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the primary case
ठीक
where
है.
this entire M&A area is very new to Pakistan.
Hmm.
पाकिस्तान में आज से कुछ सालों पहले, इनफैक्ट 2011 में फर्स्ट इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर आया था. तो उससे पहले तक तो स्टार्टअप वाला एलिमेंट भी नहीं था.
बिल्कुल.
उसके बाद से इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स के बाद से स्टार्टअप कल्चर बिकेम अ नॉर्म, लेकिन स्टार्टअप के बाद वीसीज स्टार्टेड टू कम. बट वो जो मेच्योरिटी ऑफ द स्टेज जो कि एक प्रोडक्ट कंपनी को चाहिए in order to go for an exit strategy or scale up by going for an acquisition, that is a very nascent concept in Pakistan, which is very exciting as well.
Yeah.
Because that means that we are, creating new opportunities in Pakistan in that regard.
Yes.
So that's the primary element. Other than that, because we have more than 2,000 professionals, excellent professionals, but we believe in the process of learning. We have also set up a learning and development department, which is working on upskilling and really helping in those professionals in their
Okay.
journey.
Okay.
And then uske alawa, corporate social responsibility, CSR, regulatory affairs, us tarah ke areas mein meri contribution chalti rehti hai.
That's a whole lot that you have on your plate, and you're doing it exceptionally well. Even though it's just been a year, Hira, but there has to be a sense of comfort that comes in working with this organization that always prioritizes its employees. And this set is sitting proof of, how its employees are prioritized. Lekin as an individual, as a professional who does come with sound experience, what are two things that truly stand out about Contour?
So, Samin, you talked about that I've been here for a year. But as a matter of fact, I have known Contour
Mhm.
very closely
Yes.
for actually 3 years now.
Right.
So even when I was in Pasha,
Mm-hmm.
Contour was one of the members.
Yes.
But Bilal ke saath us waqt bhi meri interaction thi. Bilal was member in our skill development committee.
Ji.
So we had worked very closely, and I had visited Contour ke offices even way before I joined Contour. But there are two things, as you mentioned, that really stand out in Contour.
Mm-hmm.
One is a lot of people questioned me about, me leaving Pasha, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people wondered about it. But I think one of the strategic decisions that I took for my life is
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to go for peace over chaos.
ठीक है.
And Contour gives that kind of environment where work-life balance, where the respectful environment and वो जो element है,
Hmm.
which is the positive culture for growth that
Hmm.
is needed to
Mhm.
take initiatives and to also contribute.
Hmm.
That's really that culture in Contour actually really stands out.
ठीक है.
And I think that was a big element for me.
ठीक है.
In terms and us culture mein, not just as a professional work life balance, but going an extra mile for females, like having childcare offices, centers in
Hmm.
all the 3 cities,
Hmm.
respecting and having that flexible working environment in terms of hybrid policies. And
Hmm.
there are loads and loads of other ways
Mhm.
of ensuring and celebrating professionals and employees that are
Hmm.
working for the organization,
Hmm.
that makes the culture values of the organizations really stand out. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing. The second element, and that is particularly related to my job, and that is that apart from that, Contour is the second largest IT exporter in Pakistan right now,
Mhm.
and one of the leading companies. My job and my role is very unique in nature.
Yes.
And it's not something that will be offered in any other organization in Pakistan.
I think there's nothing more pleasing than what you said. It really, really stands out that if you are able to be celebrated, considering all that you are capable of, like you said, the portfolio that you take care of is very unique in its own way and a first. And hopefully, there'll be other organizations also who will, pick up on this concept. It becomes more comfortable for one to proceed. अच्छा, ये तो हमने बहुत सारी बातें की in terms of career trajectory and growth and the things that you were destined to do and so much more that you have done. Hira, the other side of you, because there's definitely multiple layers, as you said, like an onion to every person. So, what is it that Hira, now that she is choosing the calm instead of the chaos, enjoys doing for herself?
The answer has really changed over the period of time, and I think it keeps on varying as well,
ठीक है.
depending upon the state that I am.
ठीक है.
Okay? Aajkal, it has to do more with just relaxing and taking rest whenever I can,
Mhm.
because our routines get so tough that I prefer to have like a lazy Sunday.
Okay.
Not a productive Sunday.
Okay.
एक ज़माने में होता था कि when I wanted to really, do other hobbies and all that on Sunday. Now I think I've reached a point in my life where I just want to do nothing on Sunday and
Understandable.
just, relax and just maybe enjoy and all. But other than that, what really helps me a lot of times is,
Mhm.
as I mentioned, when I take myself out for date.
Yeah.
I love exploring. I love traveling. I'm a foodie. So,
Okay.
and we were talking about this earlier as well. Ask me about any food place that has opened in Islamabad, and I might have had tried it. So I love trying out different kind of foods. Um, uh, and more importantly, I love the experiences that life and the world offers.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people which say कि हम बोर हो गए.
अच्छा.
Somehow this boredom का concept
Hmm.
बिल्कुल बचपन से, even when I was 10 years old, this boredom का concept मुझे आज तक जिंदगी में समझ नहीं आया.
Okay.
Because I always feel that there is so much to do in life,
Yeah.
and there is so much to learn about,
Hmm.
conquer, or not even conquer, just learn about. There are so many language, there are so many histories, there are so many things that are happening in world that I
Hmm.
feel like I don't know.
Hmm.
And that immense responsibility that the world and our life offers,
Hmm.
I believe कि उससे जो इतनी हमारी तजर्बात हैं, ये
हम्म
हमारी ज़िंदगी को यूनिक बनाते हैं
हम्म
और इसी सो दैट्स समथिंग दैट आई रियली एन्जॉय।
ठीक है.
And so I love to have different experiences, be it in form of travel, be it in form of food, or be it in just relaxing.
ओके. एंड सेंस ऑफ ऑब्जर्वेशन भी आपकी काफ़ी है बिकॉज़ आप अपने इर्द-गिर्द देख रही होती हैं, यू कीप योरसेल्फ अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट्स हैपनिंग अराउंड यू आल्सो. आप में एक तजस्सुस है जिसे कहते हैं ना, लर्निंग की एक भूख है. एंड लर्निंग की भूख और तजस्सुस की हम बात कर रहे हैं तो हम अभी थोड़ी देर पहले भी यही बात कर रहे थे कि लोग कैसे बोलते हैं कि मौक़े नहीं है, अपॉर्च्युनिटी नहीं है. आपने बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से 3 चीज़ों में समराइज़ किया. दैट वाज़ व्हाट? स्किल एंड वांटिंग टू लर्न एन
Well,
इंटरनेट, विल टू लर्न एन इंटरनेट.
and internet and device, yeah,
हाँ,
device
ये
with
3
internet.
चीज़ें हों तो कुछ भी हो सकता है पाकिस्तान में, इसके बारे में थोड़ा-सा बताइए?
You see, सलमीन, अगर हम देखें इस वक़्त एंड स्पेसिफिकली अगर हम प्रॉब्लम की बात करें
हुँ,
एंड फिर उसके बाद हम अपॉर्च्युनिटी की बात करते हैं
हुँ,
एंड देन फिर विल टॉक अबाउट कि किस तरह से हम उस अपॉर्च्युनिटी को अचीव कर सकते
हुँ,
हैं। 25,000 ग्रेजुएट्स हैं जो कि आईटी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में हैं,
ठीक है।
आईटी के ग्रेजुएट्स हैं। इंडस्ट्री के मुताबिक ओनली 5 to 10%
हुँ,
ऑफ देम
हुँ,
आर एम्प्लॉयड राइट आफ्टर ग्रेजुएशन,
ठीक है।
व्हिच मीन्स कि उन 25,000 में से सिर्फ और सिर्फ मैक्सिमम 2,500
या
गेट इमीडिएटली जॉब्स
ठीक है।
एंड बाकी के द ग्रेजुएट्स आर नॉट इमीडिएटली एम्प्लॉयड।
हुँ,
एक तरफ अगर हम इसी जो प्रॉब्लम है इसको हम एक और तरह से देखें तो इस वक्त पाकिस्तान में आईटी इंडस्ट्री के पास लगभग 1 लाख ओपनिंग्स, जॉब ओपनिंग्स हैं जो कि मौजूद है।
ओह!
So as per even the Pasha salary survey that came out last year, they said even um, you know s- 600 companies had 80,000 openings, and in industry we know that there are more than 15,000 IT companies.
हुँ,
So we know कि at least 1 लाख से ज़्यादा जॉब ओपनिंग्स है।
ठीक
जब
है।
हम एक तरफ उस नंबर को देखते हैं और एक तरफ हम
हुँ,
अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट के नंबर को
हुँ,
देखते हैं, there is a big gap, big disconnect, and that disconnect also shows the potential. I keep on saying कि पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त we are having digital skills की emergency,
हुँ,
because if we do not catch up, then uh, then that's going to really affect the generations. क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में अंडर 30 जो 30 साल से कम उम्र के 70% अवाम है,
जी,
which means कि हमारी जो majority of अवाम है वो है young,
जी।
and they need to be skilled in order to really get their best potential. तो एक तरफ हमारे पास ये reality है। और इसी रियलिटी में हमें एक और डेटा पॉइंट ऐड करती हूँ, वो है कि अगर हमने एक तरफ तो आईटी ग्रेजुएट्स की बात की थी जो कि 25,000 है, मगर हम सारे ग्रेजुएट्स को देखें
हुँ,
तो हर साल 4 लाख ग्रेजुएट्स हैं जो कि यूनिवर्सिटी से निकलते हैं।
हुँ,
अ, अगर आप इंजीनियरिंग और आईटी दोनों को मिला के भी कर दें, निकाल भी दें, तो फिर भी तकरीबन 3.5 लाख हैं जो कि नॉन आईटी के केस में हैं, जिनके लिए शायद मौके की ओपनिंग्स हैं ही बहुत कम।
हुँ,
मगर अब आते हैं अपॉर्चुनिटी के साइड पे।
हुँ,
IT sector has been the fastest growing sector in Pakistan.
ठीक है।
Even अगर हम देखें about from an exports perspective, even COVID में each and every sector uh, got affected.
गॉट अ
तो
टूक अ
एक
प्लंज.
yes, and the one sector that did not was the IT
या.
sector. So there is everyone realizes the importance now. कि with technology and specifically with IT sector, there's the kind of opportunity that is not available in other sector.
हुँ,
मगर सवाल ये है कि क्या ये आईटी सेक्टर सिर्फ इंजीनियर्स और आईटी के लोगों के लिए लिमिटेड है? तो एब्सोल्युटली नॉट,
हुँ,
एंड दैट्स वेयर वी कम टू द वे फॉरवर्ड। अगर आपके पास विल हो, सबसे
हुँ,
पहले विल हो, आप करना चाहते हैं ज़िंदगी में कुछ, अ, फिर उसके बाद आप सीखें स्किल,
हुँ,
आप कुछ कुछ भी, एंड देयर आर इस वक्त वी लिव इन अ वर्ल्ड जहाँ पे कोर्सेज आर अवेलेबल फॉर फ्री।
येस.
यूट्यूब पे वीडियोस हैं, edX.org में बेतहाशा कोर्सेज हैं, गवर्नमेंट के जो इग्नाइट का प्रोजेक्ट है उसमें बेतहाशा कोर्सेज ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल हैं। यू लर्न एनी वन स्किल, डजंट हैव टू बी मेनी, वन स्किल। सो वेल हो एंड यू लर्न अ स्किल, एंड देन उसके बाद आपके पास कोई डिवाइस हो जिसमें इंटरनेट हो, दैट जस्ट दिस कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ दीज थिंग that can make you employed.
हुँ,
And you can not just be employed, but you can start contributing to the economy. हम इस वक्त जब हम बात करते हैं महंगाई की भी, तो महंगाई का भी जो एक इन्फ्लेशन है उसका, एंड द डिस्कशन विल गो इन, उसका एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर इज़ कि हमारे जो कैश सरप्लस है, हमारे जो इम्पोर्ट्स हैं वो एक्सपोर्ट्स से ज़्यादा हैं।
Hmm.
तो एनआईटी सेक्टर एक वाहिद सेक्टर है जिसमें हम 3 साल के अंदर अंदर इसको 10 बिलियन 15 बिलियन पे लेके जा सकते हैं।
Hmm.
एंड द मोमेंट वी क्रॉस $10 billion वी डू नॉट नीड टू गो टू IMF.
Hmm.
सो इफ द कलेक्टिवली, चाहे आप आईटी सेक्टर में हैं या नहीं हैं, इफ यू स्टार्ट just learning and start contributing, then you are not just contributing to your own life
Hmm.
but to the entire country's economy.
Ek to thank you for summarizing that so well, Hira, because data doesn't lie, and statistics are usually the reality that people need to be, presented with. And आपने बहुत specific numbers in terms of comparison, in terms of opportunities, in terms of segments put forward किया है. You and I were even talking about this, और चूंकि आपने कोविड का जिक्र किया कि हम आई थिंक लोगों को ये भी सोचने की ज़रूरत, और शुक्र है अब कुछ यूथ ने इस तरह सोचना भी शुरू किया है कि द डेफिनेशन ऑफ ऐसी नौकरी ऐसे इदारे में जहाँ ऐसा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो से हट के व्हाट इज इट दैट देर एमिंग टू डू, एंड स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट भी तो कोई होना होता है. मैं ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि अच्छे इदारों में काम करने का या एम्प्लॉय होने का एक गोल नहीं होना चाहिए. ऑफ कोर्स दैट इज समथिंग दैट वन व्हेन वन वांट्स टू ग्रो along a specific trajectory, you want to step into that kind of space. But in terms of earning income and contributing to the economy, which COVID ke darmiyan bhi we saw, whether it was drop shipping or whether it was influencer marketing or whether it was, content creation, whatever it is a source of income. And behind it is what? IT and technology, right? जो कि अगर despite लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस अगर लोग करना शुरू कर सकते हैं, तो अब अवेयरनेस के साथ साथ तो बहुत कुछ और कर सकते हैं. वी ऑल्सो टॉक्ड अबाउट समथिंग विच इज नॉट अ बज वर्ड एनी मोर, लेकिन बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग पर्सपेक्टिव एक आध और आपके कॉलीग्स ने दिया, एंड आई लव टू नो योर थॉट्स ऑन, is AI something to be feared, something to be adopted, or is it something to be considered as a benchmark for how we need to prepare ourselves better for the future?
I think AI needs to be embraced
Okay.
because no matter we want it or not, it's becoming part of our lives.
Right.
And if we specifically, again, come back to the data,
Mm-hmm.
तो World Economic Forum की recent report आई है that has said कि over the next 5 years, 44% of the jobs will be changed.
Hmm.
Notice the word. It doesn't say इसके replaced. अब AI की जितनी भी आप research इन इस तरह से देखेंगे ना, तो they say they will be disrupted or changed.
ठीक है.
They will never say replaced,
ठीक है.
or they will never say they will be let go.
ठीक है.
What does that tell us? What that tells us is that there are new kinds of jobs that are coming in place, and only those that are willing to learn and are willing to upskill are going to survive in that reality. हाँ, ये ज़रूर है, एंड इसमें भी एक बहुत आती है कि हम जब कहते हैं ना फ्यूचर की बात, एक ज़माने में देयर इज़ दिस कॉन्सेप्ट कि फ्यूचर क्या है एग्जैक्टली.
Hmm.
फ्यूचर ये है कि जब आपकी द वे दैट यू आर लिविंग योर लाइफ इज completely changed. Now that future can happen in 1 year, that future can happen also in 10 years. For some people who keep on doing the same thing over the period of 30 years, उनके लिए फ्यूचर मतलब 30 साल तक नहीं आता. And same goes for nations, and same goes for economies, and same goes for countries as well. But what has and पहले ये होता था कि 10-10 साल लगते थे एक सही प्रॉपर फ्यूचर वाला एलिमेंट आने के लिए. तो अगर हम देखें पुरानी जो इनोवेशंस हुई थी, अगर हम जाके देखें तो 1900s में जिस तरह से थी, तो वो बहुत स्पेसिफिक 15-15 साल बाद, 10-10 साल बाद पहले रेडियो आया, फिर टीवी आया, फिर इंटरनेट आया, फिर वो WWW का बूम जो 2000 अर्ली 2000s में 1990s में आया था.
Hmm.
तो we see is very specific कि 10 साल लगे फ्यूचर आने में.
Hmm.
This entire reality got changed when we had COVID,
Hmm.
because COVID के बाद से it has really accelerated the
Hmm.
growth in technology.
Hmm.
And what has really started to happen is कि 6 months down the lane, we'll be living in a new reality.
जी बिल्कुल.
चैट जीपीटी से पहले जो जनरेशनल एआई की कोई बात भी नहीं थी, मतलब इट वाज वेरी लिमिटेड. एआई
Yes.
एआई का टॉपिक वाज वेरी लिमिटेड टू पीपल हु आर फ्रॉम टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर
Hmm.
या जो मशीन लर्निंग पे काम कर रहे हैं या इस तरह से. बट राइट आफ्टर द चैट जीपीटी
Hmm.
एंड नाउ वी सी कि जेन एआई के बेतहाशा hundreds and hundreds of tools आ गए हैं, which means कि whether we want it or not,
Hmm.
it has become part of our new reality.
Hmm.
Now, the key question is, when are we going to embrace it and use it to our advantage? Because the truth is कि and ये हम बात भी कर रहे थे, पुराने वक्तों में हमारे स्ट्रीट्स में सुबह के टाइम पे एक वो अलार्म करने के लिए, उठाने के लिए आते थे और वो बजाते थे.
जागते
And then
रहो कहता.
वो जाग रहे हो, जाग जाओ. And अब हमारे पास alarm clocks हैं, so that job is no longer applicable.
Yeah.
However, there are new types of roles that have now created.
Yes.
And that's the crux of it, कि चूंकि वो नई चीज़ें आएंगी, हम जितनी जल्दी उनको अडॉप्ट करेंगे, अपनी ज़िंदगी में लेकर आएंगे, उनको उनको यूज़ करते हुए, देयर इज चैट जीपीटी के साथ इन जनरेशन एआई के साथ देयर इज अ टर्म दैट हैज़ कम व्हिच इज कॉल्ड प्रॉम्प्ट इंजीनियरिंग,
Yes.
which means कि how you make those tools work for you.
Yes.
And the more you learn such things, the
Mhm.
more you will be ahead of the curve, and the more you are using it for your advantage,
Hmm.
and not really saying कि ये हमें तो नहीं आके टच करेगा.
Hmm. The key takeaway is कि जिस तरह अपसेलिंग की लोग बात करते हैं तो अपने आप को अपसेल करने के लिए अपने आप को अपस्किल करने की ज़रूरत है और कल को नहीं आज करने की ज़रूरत है.
Yeah. And सलमीन, इसमें अगर हम देखें ना, तो जो 21st सेंचुरी स्किल्स हैं, इफ़ यू जो सिंगापुर का एक पूरा 21st सेंचुरी स्किल्स का एक फ्रेमवर्क है,
Hmm.
उस 21st सेंचुरी स्किल्स में आपको कोई टेक्नोलॉजी की बात नहीं मिलेगी. The actual skills that are needed in future
Hmm.
do not have to do anything with technology.
Interesting.
What it requires is critical thinking, problem solving. It requires core values. It requires community building.
Hmm.
So a sense of identity and awareness, and then belonging to the community that you are. And those are the things that are going to make humans stand out and humans unique, because those are the things that are always going to be applicable.
And they will translate into
yes,
work,
but
na?
the element is कि ये वाली जो चीजें हैं,
Hmm.
they continuously require you to keep on learning
Yes.
and keep on getting exposure. Because अगर आप जो problems हमारे आज से 10 साल पहले के थे, वो अभी आगे के 10 साल में नहीं होंगे. So if you're not keeping yourself updated with the new realities, so then you are not going to be able to solve the new problems that the world brings.
हिरा, मौक़े होते नहीं हैं, मौक़े बनाए जाते हैं. कभी-कभी होते भी हैं, बट तब भी आपको अपॉर्च्युनिटी का फ़ायदा उठाना चाहिए. तो मैं इस अपॉर्च्युनिटी का फ़ायदा उठाऊँगी और आपसे पूछूँगी कुछ चीज़ें जो कि शायद ही आपके कॉन्टूर के कॉलीग्स को आपके बारे में मालूम हो. तो आपको क्या मौसीकी पसंद है? डू यू लाइक म्यूज़िक?
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And did you grow up listening to music or is it something that came along the way?
I think it started to come when I was 13 years old, I
Okay.
would say, yeah.
So more of English or more of Pakistani music?
Started with English, Linkin
Okay.
Park actually,
Wow.
Yes, but then started to go. And मेरी जो music collection है ना, it has like super, मतलब it has, you will find ghazals in that as well, you'll find hard rock as well. So
Mhm.
it has like veracity and variety of different type of collections and different type of things. For a long period of time I only focused on lyrics. So मुझे ये था कि अगर और कुछ अच्छा होना हो, lyrics अच्छे होने चाहिए.
Okay.
But I think over the period of time, now I have begun to, like instrumentals as well.
Okay.
So it's a combination of both.
So Hira is definitely musically inclined, and now the audience also knows. You said you're a foodie, so कोई particular cuisine जो कि आप prefer करती हैं, बेशक बाकी सब खाती भी हैं.
It eventually depends कि किस जगह पे जा रही हूँ. And it's a very interesting thing कि once I have tried different things, हर जगह पे मेरी कोई एक चीज़ होती है, वो और वो अच्छी है वहाँ की. While desis में, if I am dining out,
Hmm.
तो desis would be less of a preference, I
अच्छा
feel.
ठीक है.
Continental and pastas and all those things I will be more preference. Or Chinese, I love Chinese.
ठीक है.
I love Thai. I love Chinese. But um, other than that, it really depends on mood and it depends on where I'm going. हर जगह की कोई specific चीज, हर type of cuisine में there are very specific things that I absolutely love,
Mm-hmm.
and there are things that I will eat, but maybe not like that much.
There's a question that's come to you. It's come from a fellow Conturian. That Conturian doesn't know कि सवाल आपकी तरफ आ रहा है और आपको नहीं मालूम कि किसकी तरफ से आ रहा है. हम सब में red or green flags होते हैं, even though we try to be the better version of ourselves. So is there something of yours that you'd be comfortable sharing that you wish you did better at? Not necessarily कि वो एक toxic आपकी quality है, लेकिन आप उसको identify करती हैं as an area of improvement कि I wish I was able to do this better on a personal level, not on a professional level. ऐसी क्या चीज़ है?
I believe आजकल तो जो चीज़ है, that would be my obsession for clarity and certainty.
अच्छा, okay.
That's it's आजकल I feel, and it again for me as well, because as humans we are continuously on journey and we keep on evolving. It keeps on changing. But आजकल specifically, I believe the thing that really is making me feel like I should not
Okay.
be obsessing too much about knowing all the answers.
Right.
But I have this itch to have the clarity
Right.
and to have the certainty. And there is a side to me that knows that, we live in a world that is full of uncertainty.
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल.
And I should not be focusing on having all the answers, and I should be okay with living in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that other side of me is too powerful to listen to this saner version of myself.
ठीक, ठीक.
So आजकल तो I think this is my obsession of that. It keeps on varying, and I also think that we are in different personalities in our home,
Mhm.
with our friends, with our partners, and with professionals. So in a lot of cases, our traits and our areas of improvement also vary depending upon where we are.
Okay.
And I think so. For example, at home, I really want to clean my wardrobe. So that's, that has been on my to-do list for quite some time. I really want to open that suitcase from the last trip that I went to, and I haven't unpacked abhi tak. And it has been on my to-do list for some time, but I just never get to it. So yeah. Yes, that's my
areas of improvement. Okay. Putting it very, very politely. Hira, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I mentioned this to you earlier also, that I love the way that you not only answer questions, you yourself take it to a starting point or a particular reference instead of answering कि मुझे ये लगता है. And I think that creates and sets a tone for, the person who's sitting in front of you to want to listen. I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so, so very much for giving us your time.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure.
What a fantastic way to close this season. It's been definitely very, very heartwarming. And a big thank you to all our guests who are comfortable enough to open up as much as they did. Till next time, this is me, Salmeen Ansari, signing off and saying thank you for listening and Allah Hafiz.